Good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us on the program Flip Side, the other side of the news. Now, this is one story that's hardly made news, and that is learning disability. Today, we'll be discussing learning disabilities and overview. Now, it's not very common. For those who watch a lot of foreign movies, if you've seen the movie Nine School, you would know what I'm talking about, at least to an extent. That was the first time I even knew something like this existed. And since then, I've been doing a lot of research and I saw that it's a bit common, but many of us don't know what it is. What exactly is learning disability? Have you ever encountered a child that finds it difficult to understand what you're saying and you just conclude that this child is dull, this child is dumb, this child is just a fool? You know, we give so many insultive words to these children, and maybe it's not because the child doesn't want to learn. The child might have some challenges that you don't know or doesn't even know how to express to you. Well, today on Flip Side, we'll be talking about learning disabilities. So we'll know the difference between those who are just lazy, they don't want to learn, and those who are having challenges. And just in case your child is one of those, you just want to stick around and watch this video till the end so that you know what you're dealing with. I have two special guests. In fact, it's Yoruba versus Benin today. I have two men in the studio with me. Seated very close to me is Dr. Kehinde Oderinde. He's a consultant psychiatrist from Useli Neuropsychiatric Hospital here in Benin. Sorry, UBTH, yes. He's from the University of Benin Teaching Hospital, and he's here with me on the show today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. I have someone who is wearing the same color as myself, red and black. He's an adjunct lecturer from the Special Education Unit of the University of Benin. I'm talking about Mr. Bamigbade Owade. Help me hold my crown. Abi, that's the meaning of the name. Welcome, sir. All right, so these two men, these two amazing resource persons will be talking about learning disabilities today on the show. I'm going to actually start with Mr. Owade on the show. Now, I mean, you're a lecturer, so let's go. What exactly is learning disability?
Learning disability, first let me just bring this bullet.
Okay.
Learning disability is a perception problem. One, it is a learning problem. Also, it involves different ways by which children have learning deficits. Then, with this, I can now go to define learning disability as a disorder involved in processing which manifests in disorder in one or more of the following: thinking, listening, talking, spelling, reading, writing, and of course, mathematical calculation. When we look at this, when we think a child that has any of these challenges is not intelligent. However, for children with learning disability, their intellectual capacity is still there because they have the intellectual ability. But there are some challenges which impede their performances in this area that we have mentioned.
Okay. A person like me that doesn't like mathematics, maybe, I don't know, but...
In your own case, it may not be so. It's not everybody that doesn't like mathematics
Yes.
that is having this problem.
Okay.
Calculation now, if they pay your salary now, they remove 5 naira, I know you will know. So you are not
That one is loud. Okay, I was going to actually ask you that question though. If learning disability is the same thing as learning difficulties?
Well, let me add to what my colleague here rightly said.
Okay.
In clinical medicine, the way we see a learning disabled child is a child who appears to have intellectual quotient or intellectual capacity that is below average. So when a child has IQ below average, and as a result of that sub-average IQ. The child is unable to perform some adaptive functions or some activities of daily living. Such a child may experience difficulty in communication, in social skills, in self-direction, in self-care. Such a child may not be able to know between the right and the left. But in a child that has learning difficulty, as my colleague here rightly said, a child with learning difficulty, the IQ is normal. Most times they are very intelligent and very smart. Only that they have difficulty in reading, in writing, in communication. But a child with learning disability tends to have below average IQ. There's a normal IQ that's expected of a child, say like 70%, 70 and above. So when a child has an IQ that is less than 70%, of course, that child may not be able to reason well, may not be able to follow instructions, may not be able to understand instructions, and may not be able to communicate effectively. So the difference between learning disability and learning difficulty, in learning disability, the IQ is sub-average, is subnormal. But in learning difficulty, the IQ is normal. So the IQ in learning in a child with learning difficulty is normal, while that of a child with learning disability is subnormal.
Oh, okay. Okay. Slight difference in explanation, but I think I get the meaning right now. But what causes this learning disability and difficulty?
All right. Well, there are so many factors that have been implicated in the onset of learning disability. But let me say here that 50% of cases of children with learning disability, the cause is unknown. However, there are factors that could influence the onset of learning disability in the child. One is family history. If there's a history of learning disability in the family, the child stands the risk of developing learning disability. That has to do with the genetic factor. Now, and of course, there are some factors that happen before childbirth. For instance, a pregnant woman who takes alcohol or takes some illicit substances like cannabis, tobacco, and what have you. Studies have shown that use of these substances in pregnancy could increase the risk of learning disability in a child. And of course, even during childbirth, there are some problems that may happen. For instance, if the child suffers some degree of birth asphyxia, such that the child does not get enough oxygen to the brain.
Yeah.
So that insult to the brain may lead to the child developing learning disability in childhood. And of course, even some injury that may happen post-birth. For instance, there's injury to the head or some brain infections. All these could combine together and increase the risk of learning disability in children.
Interesting. Interesting. I remember when I was going for my antenatal, the nurses will always say, you all should be praying that maybe you push your baby out, the baby cries. Because when the baby cries, the baby takes in air. That oxygen is very key.
Absolutely.
So when the baby is crying, you will be happy. Be happy that your baby is crying. So I get it. I get it. That's nice. So Mr. Wade, you're a lecturer.
Yes.
And you've encountered some, I would say. But how common do you think this learning difficulty or disability is? And what are the different types you'd say we have?
I just want to, before we move further,
Okay.
I want us to distinguish between intellectual disability, which was formerly called mental retardation, and learning disability.
Okay.
So, learning disability is common, but it's not easily recognized, except you are in the child, such a child is involved in learning. Like when we are talking of a person with visual impairment, as I entered here, everybody knew that I was visually challenged.
Yes.
It was not easy to identify a child with visual impairment, with intellectual, a child with learning disability, because
it's not very visible.
The characteristic that they manifest can be manifest by any other group of children. But when we look at it, it's common. They are in regular classroom, whereby teachers look at them as non-performing, especially in some areas. For example, a child may have a learning problem that involves reading. This is what we call dyslexia. A child may have problem that has to do with writing. This is what we call dysgraphia. And a child may equally have a disturbance in calculation, mathematical calculation, which we call dyscalculia. So in this case, when they are tested, they can easily be known. They are common in classes, especially teachers can easily identify them, and parents too, that are very patient and observant may easily identify them.
All right. Okay, so
Pamiki, if I may
add
to what he said.
Okay.
In Nigeria, there is a paucity of data about the prevalence of learning disability.
Oh, please.
But recent statistics by Dyslexia Foundation show that 1 in every 4 Nigerian children have learning disability.
Dear God.
Yes, 1 in every 4 Nigerian children have learning disability. And as I rightly said, the disorder is there, but it takes someone who has the capacity to quickly pick and discover that in the child. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So if you have a child who finds difficulty in reading, in calculation, and in writing, it could be a pointer, and so we need to do a test, I guess.
Yeah.
But what kind of test? How do you go about the test? Should I just bring the child to any special education teacher, or should I take the child to a psychiatrist? I'm going to ask the both of you this because you're offering advice. So then what will the child display that will make you now say, okay, no, this one is not just only a difficulty or a challenge or a laziness. This is a disability.
Okay, fine. Well, if a child has difficulty in reading or in writing or in mathematics, just an isolated symptom is not enough to label the child as suffering from learning disability.
Exactly.
Now, the symptom of either difficulty in reading or in writing or in calculation must be problematic. There are 3 P's that we often look at. The symptom must be problematic to the child, the symptom must be persistent to the child, and the symptom must cause some level of distress to the functioning of the child. So I haven't seen those symptoms of not being able to read, not being able to write, and it's been problematic, it's been pervasive, it's been persistent. Then of course you can conclude that this child has learning disability. And once that child presents, usually the care of children with learning disability is multidisciplinary. You know, you need the special education teachers, you need the doctors, you need the pediatricians, you need the clinical psychologists, you need the developmental psychologists. So when they present, there are some tests, there are some psychological tools that are used to assess the level of IQ, to assess the intelligence quotient. And I haven't gotten that. Once that child's IQ is below 70%, that points that the child has a learning disability. And of course, there are about 4 subtypes or 4 categories of learning disability. There's a mild learning disability, there's moderate, there's a profound, there's severe, there's a profound learning disability. Usually, children with mild to moderate disability can still function independently with some support. But of course, children with very profound and severe learning disability need extra special education. So I will advise that they should present early. And of course, parents must be very observant. Teachers must be very observant. Because once that disorder is picked early, the better for the child.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Mr. Wadi, you want to add
Thank you very
anything?
much.
Yes.
There are some key factors or characteristics which we identify in the areas of special education or education generally. That what we call HD and AD, hyperactivity disorder and attention deficit. It's common with children with learning disabilities. So if you observe and you see that, it may not totally mean that that child is having learning disability, but it can
Be a red flag.
Pointer or red flag. Another, we can top it, we can say hyperactivity, hyperdistractivity. A child with learning disability can easily be distracted by other things outside the learning classroom. Then we have perseveration, a situation where a child is doing something even after there is no more need for such activities, the child continues. Maybe you want to teach them a kind of topic, maybe Christian religious studies, you bring a song. You now ask them to stop so that you can continue your teaching. Such a child
singing.
continue to sing. When you ask them to color an area, maybe a corner of a paper, such a child may color the whole book. So you are able to see that such a child is having learning disability, may have learning disabilities. And when you now check, it's possible that the child has disability in only one or two areas. Just as I talk of reading.
Yes.
The child may have challenge in reading, but he may be a genius in mathematics. So that is it. You observe, look at the characteristics, look at before you now look at performance. Experts even said that this learning disability is a kind of discrepancy between potentials and performance. The child may have inherent or inbuilt potential, but may not have problem that if somebody just look at an area where the child is having learning disability, say this is a dullard.
Yeah.
It's no brain. Thank you.
All right. We're talking about learning disabilities, and I can relate to a large extent because of the few movies I've seen. I've actually not encountered a child that has a learning disability, or maybe because I'm not a teacher, so I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so I don't really have time to spend with children. I'm always here or doing something. But the movies I've seen, I remember when Mr. Wade talked about hyperactivity, that particular night school, the guy was very hyper, but I think his problem was just mathematics. So when you give him a sum, maybe it's 1 + 1 on a straight line, he sees the one at the top, he sees the plus at the bottom, he sees the other one, everything is just scattered in his head and all of that. But we're still going to talk about, can he be cured? What can we do to help people who have learning disabilities? Because whether you like it or not, whether you rebuke it in the name of Jesus or not, it is a reality, and we need to we need to understand it. We need to learn to deal with it. We need to accept that it can be someone's reality. Rebuke it in the name of Jesus, but it's some people's reality, and you need to help them. We're going on a short break on the show. When we return, we'll look at ways we could offer help to people with learning disabilities. We'll be right back. Okay, we're just behind the camera. We're just talking about some of the experiences we had growing up and how our parents would try to help, maybe with our assignments. We call it homework these days, and you're not catching up quick, and they're quick with their hands. Some of them are quick with their canes. Some of them, anything they see, it irritates them that something so simple, you don't know it at your age. But like we've established, it's not really as simple as you think for some people. Yes, if your child has a challenge, you need to get them checked before you conclude and say, oh, this child is dull, this child, you need help. You might just need help. So let's talk about this. I'll start with you, Dr. Oderinde. Can learning disability be cured? I mean, you're a doctor.
Okay.
Is there hope for us?
Well, learning disability cannot be cured, but there's the good news is that it can be managed, and the individual can live independently and actualize his or her potentials in life. And so I would say that learning disability is a lifelong disorder, and it's not curable. Yes, but of course it can be managed. And for our viewers at home, there's hope for those children with learning disability. Once they present early in psychiatric facilities or in hospitals for very comprehensive assessment, such a child is definitely will surely do well in the course of time. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Owode, is it a possibility, even though there's no cure, that maybe as the child grows older, you can outgrow some of the challenges? Have you ever encountered something like that?
Learning disability may not cure totally, but can be controlled under the purview of special education.
Yes.
Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Can be controlled under the purview of special education. For example, we are talking of hyperactivity, distractivity, and others. It depends on how the teacher handles such a child. You create the environment that will attract the student to learning, like present necessary materials, the illustration and others like that should be there. For example, there are some children who have perceptual problem, which is part of learning disabilities. For example, some children basic 1, 2, or 3 may likely turn 7 to L. That is the way they perceive such a letter. We have echoic and iconic perception. The echoic is the one that they perceive sound, while iconic is the one they perceive figures and others. There are some students that will write P as B.
Yeah.
So if you get such students, you control them with necessary learning facility, learning materials. For example, a child may be asked to shade the cut out shape of the letter, arrange it into normal. Want to write P, want the child to know how to get the P in writing, you let the child shade it. For with time, the child may adjust. It's not just flogging or whatever. You create room for the child to learn, give him necessary materials, give him necessary encouragement. And for example, we say a child with a distractivity or whatever should not sit beside the window where I can easily see somebody passing. So you put him in a position where the eye of the teacher will monitor him and make sure that I concentrate on the learning. That is it.
Okay. And still on you, before this question you both answer, but since the floor is already yours, do you think these children should be in the same classroom as children who do not have this challenge? That's one. And then what do you think we should target in Nigeria for this inclusive education improvement? Because people keep driving that, don't separate children, but what would you advise?
The situation where we put them in the same class is to give them sense of belonging, not to separate them. Since the idea is that since they are going to live together in the same society after school, why not let them continue living together? That is the idea created by inclusive education. Inclusive education is a system of education whereby children, divergent type of children, are kept in the same classroom to learn.
Yes.
So this one is very, very important. This is the global trend now under the inclusive education. But if we want it to survive or thrive in Nigeria, we need to take some steps. The first, I will start from the school environment, whereby architectural barrier that will affect some of the students are removed. Then there should be provision of employment of more teachers, especially special education teachers. It is even advocated by experts that those reading education, that's learning how to teach in the university or colleges of education, should study the element of special education. We are talking of identifying this type of student. When they study special education, they enter a classroom, they be able to identify them. And government should provide training for teachers, provide fund for teachers. Then some teachers in the school, secondary or primary school, can go for in-service training. As I see me, I was not a special educator before, but under the Edo State government, I was allowed to go for sandwich course in special education, which earned me my opportunity to still be a lecturer after retiring from the secondary school under the Edo State government. So what we are trying to say in the essence is that we should make use of opportunity or make use of take drastic steps to make sure that we have enough teachers.
Yeah.
There may be itinerant teachers that will be moving from school to school. Then all schools should have special teachers. Yeah. That will be our focus. Getting the facilities that will make the school conducive and getting the operators. We must have special education teachers and caregivers that will assist in monitoring these students.
Interesting. Okay, and it's beautiful as all of that sounds, and just thinking how these teachers will be able to manage bullying and all that, because some of these things will come with a lot of bullying if they are not separated. But Dr. Derinde, do you toe the same line as Mr. Awade on this?
Well, I agree with him on the aspect of enhancing the capacity of special education teachers. But we often recommend to teachers, because of course the management of learning disabled child is multidisciplinary. You need the doctors, you need the teachers, you need the parents. So everyone must collaborate to ensure that the child gets the best. Now, a child who has learning disability, in the class, we often recommend that such a child should sit very close to the teacher, so that the child will be able to concentrate and even gain some things in the course of teaching. And as he also rightly said, there are children with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Those kind of children may be so restless, and if care is not taken, they may injure themselves in the course of classroom teaching. But I will say that children with learning disability should have special schools where, because these children need extra help, they need special needs, and it takes a teacher who is very patient to really deliver these needs. Unlike a normal child, a child who doesn't have any challenge, so to speak, may not need much attention, unlike the child who has some cognitive disability. So I will recommend that such children should be taught in special schools where there are special teachers in special education who can provide quality special services to these children. And of course, I must also say on the area of stigma, you see, these children need to be shown love. They need to be encouraged. They need to be supported. Because in our environment, the stigma around children with learning disability is quite on the high side. So people use several kinds of derogatory words, like idiot, like fool, like moron, like imbecile, to describe these children. And these kinds of words traumatize the mental psyche the emotional psyche of these children. So I want to also recommend to our viewers that these children should be encouraged. They should be shown love and they should be shown empathy, because doing that alone will also boost their self-motivation, their self-worth, and their self-esteem.
Interesting.
Let me still add something.
Okay.
In the process of handling this student, just as my colleague said, there is multidisciplinary approach. In an inclusive classroom, it is not just only one teacher that will be there.
Okay.
There will be some teachers and other caregivers. That's why it needs a lot of personnel, and this will cost fund. In other words, there should be teachers monitoring the students. A child that is hyperactive should have caregivers that we can call body, B-U-D-D-Y, looking and watching them and making sure that they are kept on their seats. And another thing is that when they are under the inclusive system, the teacher who has been trained to handle them will so handle them to make them concentrate on the learning process. We want to make sure that we distinguish between one type of student. That means almost all of them will still be scattered. And the idea of giving them a sense of belonging, the idea of training them to acclimatize before they enter the society will not be there.
Interesting. All right, we're going to start getting ready to leave the studio at this point. But I would want to add this, because the parents who also have the children with any kind of disability, whether it's a physical one, a mental one, any type, they also need a lot of emotional support. It's not easy to parent a child, talk less of the child who has some sort of challenge. So even as a family member, you need to support them somehow. And even when we talk about learning disabilities in general, it seems like it's only the blind and the deaf that they care for in the government school. I'm yet to see a government school that deals with autistic children. We need to, I know the all inclusive thing, if you still even say you don't want to do inclusive learning, what structures are in place to even separate these children? But we are recommending now that it should be inclusive. We're recommending that everyone should be in the same classroom. We need hands. You're going to do a lot of employment. And we are hearing that we don't even have enough money to pay workers. It's complicated in Nigeria. But really, this is very important. This is a serious matter. And everyone should put their hands to support any child out there with a disability, or even an adult. Maybe the child had to drop out of school because there was no special arrangement, so the person is all grown up now, still interested in learning, but the disability is still there. I mean, it doesn't have a cure like we already established. Then we need to support. We need to give them a hand. We need to give them a hand. So the last thing, we will just have your last words on this topic, whatever conclusions you want to give. And for, you said we could bring the children to a psychiatric hospital for evaluation.
Yeah.
Is that going to be free? Is it cheap?
Well, let me also say that because using the word psychiatric hospital, some may think that are these children mad or are they crazy? But let me say that they should come to hospitals.
Okay.
Public hospitals. And of course, there are experts in child adolescent psychiatry who will look into their case and assess them properly. Usually, when you say a child should go to psychiatric hospital, that may also reinforce the problem. But I would recommend that such children should come to hospital, and when they see the general physician will of course see and recommend to the child adolescent psychiatrist who will do the needful.
Okay. All right, Mr. Owode, your last words on today's topic.
My last word is that the parents should not keep their children at home no matter what the challenges are. students or pupils are being trained in different areas. So they should not just leave them at home, not just allow them stay at home. Then another thing which I did not mention during the course of this learning is nutrition for children.
Okay.
There are some studies have shown that there are some food that intensify activities in children. So parents who consult that dietitian who will advise them. Then children should eat balanced diet. Then another thing which may still cause this learning disability may be the condition or the environment the child face at home. Let the children be comfortable, live under the comfortable condition, so that when they get to classroom, they will not just be dull or be moody, sort of. So let us encourage our children, and some parents give their children to some other people to take care of. When they are not there, how do they manage such children? So let us take care of the one we can deliver. And for pregnant women, they should check whatever they take. And they should at least not allowing their emotional status to go down. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say thank you to you both for honoring us today with your presence and for giving us enough ideas and information from your wealth of knowledge. All right. Please, you both should be careful with your babies. Don't let them fall and hit their heads. Yes, I'll add that one. I learned that one during antenatal. So, as much as we can, let all hands be on deck to support a child. If the parent of the child does not recognize the challenges of the child, you as an uncle, an aunt, a neighbor, can do the needful and take the child for a proper checkup and take the child to the right teachers and make sure you get the right equipment and materials to teach the child. There's no child that is dull. There's no child that is beyond help. There's no child that is a nuisance if you do the right training for that child. I'm Daisy Leosikidi. Thanks for your time. I promised a video on water last week. We showed you a short clip, and water is very good. It's good for your brain. It's good for your body. We're going to give you that complete video now as we're leaving the studio. We dropped the documentary on water. Don't forget, you can get the full video on YouTube of this discussion. You can get the repeat broadcast on Star Times and Go TV tomorrow. But we'll leave you now with our documentary on water. Did you know that your body weight is approximately 60% water? Your body uses water in all its cells, organs, and tissues to help regulate its temperature and maintain other bodily functions. Because your body loses water through breathing, sweating, and digestion, it's important to rehydrate by drinking fluids and eating foods that contain water. The amount of water you need depends on a variety of factors, including the climate you live in, how physically active you are, and whether you are experiencing an illness or have any other health problem. Water does more than just quench your thirst and regulate your body's temperature. It also keeps the tissues in your body moist. You know how it feels when your eyes, nose, or mouth gets dry? Keeping your body hydrated helps it retain optimum levels of moisture in these sensitive areas, as well as in the blood, bones, and the brain. In addition, water helps protect the spinal cord, and it acts as a lubricant and cushion for your joints. Just like the other organs of your body, skin is also made of several cells. Whether you want shinier hair, younger skin, a healthier body, or all three of these, pure, clear water is the world's best beauty elixir. For centuries, people in Eastern Europe have gone to bathhouses for water therapy to detoxify and tighten their skin. The process involves a steam room session to open pores, followed by a cold pool plunge to shock skin. This can easily be replicated at home by bathing with warm water, which will open your pores
and then you can seal them by splashing with cold water afterwards. Water is essential to maintain the optimum skin moisture and deliver essential nutrients to the skin cells. It replenishes the skin tissue and increases its elasticity. It helps delay appearance and signs of aging like wrinkles and fine lines. Water is a perfect replacement for your expensive anti-aging treatments. It keeps the skin well hydrated and glistening, thereby enhancing complexion. So, for soft and supple skin, drinking an adequate amount of water is more important than applying topical creams. Drinking enough water combats skin disorder like psoriasis, wrinkles, and eczema. It also increases the metabolic rate and improves digestive system to flush out toxins from the body. This in turn gives you a healthy and glowy skin, plus water plumps the skin cells, making them look less wrinkled. A nice cold shower and a relaxing bath calms the nerves and reduces stress-related damage to the skin. Soak your entire body in cold water for 2 to 3 minutes to rejuvenate the skin. Long exposure of skin to water can strip off the natural oils, so please don't stretch your bathing or shower duration. 2 to 3 minutes is just okay. A cold water compress can also help to reduce under-eye inflammation. As water evaporates from the skin, the surface becomes cooler. Splashing cold water on the eyes can also reduce eye puffiness. When there is a loss of water, the kidney cannot function at its best, making it shed excess burden on the liver. The liver helps to burn off the fat in our body into energy, but when it has to do the excess work of the kidney, it cannot burn as much fat into energy as it should, resulting in fat deposits. Take water in good quantity, at least 8 glasses a day, to prevent fat deposit and to keep yourself healthy. So, you can say that losing weight is one of the advantages from drinking water. Water also helps in removing waste from the body. Adequate water intake enables your body to excrete waste through perspiration, urination, and defecation. The kidneys and liver use it to help flush out waste, as do your intestines. Water can also keep you from getting constipated by softening your stools and helping move the food you've eaten through your intestinal tracts. Water prevents you from becoming dehydrated. Your body loses fluid when you engage in vigorous exercise, sweat in high heat, or come down with a fever, or contract an illness that causes vomiting or diarrhea. If you're losing fluids from any of these reasons, it is important to increase your fluid intake so that you can restore your body's natural hydration levels. Your doctor may also recommend that you drink more fluids to help treat other health conditions like bladder infections and urinary tract stones. If you are pregnant or nursing, you may want to consult with your physician about your fluid intake because your body will be using more fluids than usual, especially if you are breastfeeding. The big question is, how much water do you need? There's no hard and fast rule, and many individuals meet their daily hydration need by simply drinking water when they're thirsty. But if you are not sure about your hydration level, look at your urine. If it is clear, you are in good shape. If it is dark, you are probably dehydrated. Drink lots of water, at least 8 glasses a day, to get a beautiful, healthy body and a glowy skin. Your body is your responsibility. Please take good care of it.